he says yes, and then Howard's like, "Talk to your wife, please. Don't even get us started because we're gonna." So now Howard's got pay-per-view involved. Vinny's got it on DirecTV.
They were going to have like a curtain with just his head showing, right?
So fun. And Scott's sitting there as if he's going to do it. Hello and welcome to Here's the Pitch. Trying something new here. Again, sponsored by Masses Restaurants, of course, in St. Louis, stlmasses.com. I'm your YouTube friend, Brad. Yesterday put up kind of a review of the early portion of the show, of the Stern Show. People seem to maybe like it, maybe not, but I'll also add something to the end of this. So today on this show, Helipcopter Pete is joining me, and looking forward to hearing him. We're going to just talk about stories. So kind of the thought here was maybe look back at some moments from the show that happened, and mine today are top 10 Scott the Engineer stories, and I have my favorite, and you'll hear those coming up here. Quick rundown of the show today, though. It started off with Howard talking about needing to go to the dentist because his teeth are grinding. Very informative stuff. He wears a plastic thing at night, and Beth makes fun of him. They went into Damar Hamlin talk after that. Of course, the football player who had an issue on Monday Night Football. And of course, this is when Howard went into his spiel of football needs to be ended. NFL probably wanted to keep playing, he said, which I agree. I don't think the NFL really wanted that game to stop, knowing how they think. They just sit up top. Anyway, that's Howard's thought, and I agree with him. He said owners look like guys on the plantation, not saying that the players are slaves or a racial way, but just the way they treat the players, and they don't compensate players after injuries. I agree with Howard on this point, so interesting take. He told John Bon Jovi when he was trying to get into football, don't do it. And so, of course, John Bon Jovi did get into it a little bit. Baba Booey came in and talked about how he thought the NFL did want to stop it, and Howard said no, and he said he brought up Fred's bachelor party and said, didn't we stop Fred's bachelor party back in '94, which I remember listening to, and Howard said no, we didn't. They reminisced about the bachelor party a bunch then and talked about that, and they didn't talk about Gay Rich being on Fred's lap, but that is part of this talk today. Then they went back into more Damar Hamlin talk, and Baba Booey said there's people out there talking about how their fantasy football teams are being wrecked by this situation, and they don't really care, and that's, of course, how people are. People are stupid. Howard then talked about needing a physical. They want to check him for Alzheimer's. He hates how his memory is. So he talks about how bad his memory is, nothing much there. Then they went into this whole vacation, Robin's vacation story about Vietnam, and Howard started doing his thing about how he was in Vietnam, was very bored by that. He talked about how his kids came by over the holiday, and they did, this was an interesting story, actually. His daughter said, do you remember, Howard, when you were trying to check yourself into a mental hospital, and Howard thought it would be good for publicity? And Howard actually thought about doing it, and it's a pretty good story. He didn't do it because I think Mel Karmazin said, don't. This is probably a bad idea. Also, Howard thought about it being on his record. But he did think about checking himself into a mental facility for ratings. I like that. Bowie talked about his tribute to Elephant Boy that he put out. Howard got kind of mad that it was on Bowie's Instagram, and Baba Booey had to explain. He puts his wrap-up show Monday afternoon stuff on Instagram, and then Howard's place takes it. But it led to Howard talking about wanting to open up his Instagram to be public instead of private. He says he only has 27 followers, and most times it's just art pictures, but he's thinking about putting out his art on Instagram, so that'll be good. They went into Kevin McCarthy talk and just how that's not working out. This is where they lost me, so I'll just stop here. They had callers. They talked about a few other deaths, Pele and the Pope. And then George Santos talk with a caller. So that's a little bit about the January 4th show 2023. If you're enjoying hearing this rundown and recap, so you don't have to, I can tell you that I have not listened to the show this intently, and wow, I there's a little there, but not a lot. Needs already line. So now it's time for my chat with Helipcopter Pete as we look back at some of the better times in Stern history, and you get to learn a little bit about Helipcopter Pete. So let's go ahead and and turn it over to that portion of the show here. Thank you for watching, and always comment and subscribe and like these videos, pass them along. I have super thanks enacted, and if you want to become a member, maybe we'll do that too. Hopefully you're interested, but thanks for watching, and here's Helicopter Pete. Pete, I didn't even ask what we should call you. I think everyone knows you as Helicopter Pete, but
yeah, it was Copter in the SFN days. That was my account, and that's what led to the whole helicopter thing. So, yeah, Copter, Peter, whatever, doesn't matter.
As I told you, and as most of the people who watch this know, that I enjoy the Stern Show for many years, and I enjoy hearing from people who were on it, who worked it, who called into it, who are just names that I've heard. And I remembered your name, and I saw you in another group of people, and I said, I need to talk to him, because, of course, we always ask about Artie Lang. So let's start. Where's Artie Lang? What's he doing?
I have no idea, man. So the last time I saw him was when he was on the Jimmy Kimmel Show. All right, so I got tickets, and we were waiting in line to go see the show, and me looking the way I do, they picked me out to be an audience contestant, right? So I was like, okay, cool, whatever. So they go on and they push me aside. And so I was there with my girlfriend, trying to impress her. Like, yeah, I know Artie, I'm like this cool guy. I know Artie or whatever. So I go, they put me aside, I'm waiting backstage, and I'm just minding my business. Then Artie comes by, hey, gives me a big hug. Artie, how you doing, man? Bullshit for a minute, and then he goes away. Then the girlfriend comes walking in. Oh, I'm going to the bathroom. I'm like, you just missed him. You just missed him. He's gone. And then that was like the last time I saw him.
I had the Artie Lang era was my favorite, very closely second, followed by the Jackie era. And so when Artie left, I was like, well, I need that boy. I need that third voice. I can't just have Robin and Howard talking to each other. And that's kind of what it's become for me. It's just those two. I don't even know I know the Chris Wildings and the Nowickis and those guys. I know their names, but I don't really follow. I don't know. There was just sort of this piece of the show that died for me the day Artie left. The day the music died.
Missing Artie, definitely. It sucked, but they rebuilt it, and it's a little different without the third guy. But look, Howard and Robin bantering, or Howard mad, always great. Howard in a good mood, isn't it? But when Howard's mad and like Gary does something a normal person will do, and then Howard just destroys him for it, feels so bad for Gary, but it's just so funny.
Do you have a favorite busting on Baba Booey's balls ever? Do you have a top 5 moment, top 2 moment?
You know what? I don't know. That's a tough question, but every once in a while, like I'll find myself just going, plantain chips, ball, plantain chips, and shrimp, all that. One of the times in Vegas, I was on the side corner. I got to watch Baba Booey eat shrimp, and I was pretty happy about that.
Well,
it's the way Jackie would bust his balls all the time.
Yeah, and it's funny because this is kind of the way I'm going to try to couch these interviews with some of the super fans. It's like, would you want to be Baba Booey? I mean, your name's Baba Booey. You've been on this show for 35, 40 years. Your balls busted. Everybody thinks you're kind of a dummy. I mean, in real life, but you've got a mansion. You're living the life. You're off at 2:00 in the afternoon. Would you want that life, or is it, or do we feel bad for Baba Booey, or in the end is he the winner?
I don't feel bad for him. He has the ability to compartment, like it doesn't bother him. So good for him. I'm happy for his success. He's funny too when he's on the show, just being Gary. I've met Gary a few times. Delightful guy. You know what I mean? Very nice. Was willing to chat. Great guy. And it's funny. You know what I mean? Like, and it doesn't bother him. So I guess I'm weird like that. I'm the weird guy. Like I don't doesn't bother me. You know what I mean? Like it just.
Yeah, I always find it funny though when Howard does bring him in, and Baba Booey knows he's part of the show. But why would Baba Booey ever argue with Howard? He's never going to win. So like when he talks about his, being the techno beaver or his record collection or all the things that he gets busted on, why argue with Howard? Because Howard's never going to understand it, and Howard's doing it for the show, unless Baba Booey knows he's doing it for the show.
I think in a lot of ways it's a bit of a stumble, but I guess he can't help it. He can't help it. He does normal things, man. Gary comes in, he does normal stuff that a normal person does, and Howard busts his balls for it, and Robin will chime in and just make it even worse. It's just so funny. I don't know, man. I find it hilarious. But I feel bad for him, but I know, knowing that he states over and over again, like, it doesn't bother him, it's not a big deal. And, I thought he would hate Sal, and he seems to really be affectionate towards Sal. And Sal was brutal with it, just brutal.
I'm actually thinking now of moments, and I think when he wrote the book, and just talked about songs that he liked. It was like, what? Why would you do that? Why would you allow this out there? You know this is going to be taken.
But it's still funny, man. They play the top 10 Desert Island.
And then he has to go in and explain it, and it's like, what? Why would you? I don't know.
He had to fill the pages up with something, right? Because the book's only going to be so long.
So when did you start kind of being able to hang out with some of these guys and kind of get a little closer to this group and be part of kind of the inner circle?
So I joined SFN probably Stern Fan Network, sorry, 2000, 2001, maybe 2002. We went to Vegas for the first Vegas show. We when it was at night, we showed up and it was like, oh, there's Yucko the Clown, or, there's, like that kind of stuff. And then we left. And then the next year when it was 2003, I showed up. I was married at the time. Me and my wife showed up. And I was walking in the Hard Rock because the Hard Rock's a tiny hotel. I don't know if you've ever been to the Hard Rock in Vegas. Mm-hmm. It was tiny. So we were walking around and I saw this dude and I was like, hey, are you Dan the Song Parody Man? He was like, yeah. And then it was like, oh, I'm Zolar. I was like, hey. And then the other guy was like, I'm Mutt. I was like, oh, I'm on your website. And then I met those guys and then it expanded. Then I met Joey Boots. And then, but through that.
Baba Booey, Howard Stern's penis.
Oh, that's right. Your wife's a big fan of this channel. I forgot. That's right. Yeah. Hi there.
Hi.
What's your name?
I'm Krista.
Hi, Krista.
That girl. Hi, nice to meet you. Big fan. Love your work.
Oh, thank you. Love yours too. Should I say that? I don't even know if she does.
Thank you. All right. Bye. Nice to meet you.
Baba Booey to you too.
Thank you.
Hey now. All right, so you get to know these guys, and then again, I remember, like I said, you were kind of in that little inner circle. You're doing some phony phone calls. Tell me a little bit about what led you into the show from the Stern Fan Network, SFN, as we say here.
Those dudes and got to know them, and they all liked me. They liked the woman I was married to at the time. She was attractive, so of course everybody wanted to hang around her. Not really necessarily me, right? Because a bunch of dudes. We were all hanging out. And that's how I got to know them. I had met Jim Florentine at a comedy show, so I got to know him a little, just afterwards talking and bullshit. And then I got to know Bob Levy a lot. So I was friends with those guys. We were hanging out with them. The next year we went, I knew Florentine and Levy, so I was hanging out with those guys during the show. And I think 2003. Sorry, I'm getting them all mixed. 2003 in Vegas. Joey gave me his +1 VIP pass, so. That's when I met everybody. And I was always been a come together kind of guy. Hey, this guy. So just going to the bar, I was meeting people. It's like, hey, how you doing? Big fan. Just totally nerding out on the whole thing. Right. And then they would join SFN. I would talk to them there. Then the next year, 2004, we were hanging out with Levy and Florentine with those guys, High Pitch Eric. I was there with the Beetlejuice thing. I got a good Beetlejuice story. If you want to hear that.
Let's go for that. Let's hear some Beetlejuice stories. Everybody loves Beetlejuice.
In Vegas, there was the night he lost his teeth. This is not good, but so we were hanging out with a group of people, and they had all these strip clubs were bussing us around, let's go here, let's go. So I was there with, I'm trying to remember, I don't think Boots was there, but it was me and my wife, Beat, some dude wearing a Lakers jersey, and some other people and we're at this club, and I'm looking around and I'm like, everybody's gone. Beetlejuice is kind of by himself. And the guy in the Lakers room was like, dude, I'm in charge of Beetlejuice. So his handler took off. And I was just like, yeah, that ain't going to happen, buddy. Cause this dude wasn't he wasn't in charge of himself, let alone someone else. So I was just like, what do I do? So I called Mutt. I'm like, what do I do? And he goes, just tell Beat, Doug Goodstein called, said he needs to be back at the hotel. So I'm like, okay. So I grabbed Beat. Doug Goodstein called. We got to get you back to the hotel. And he's like, Beat being Beat. And we get in the car. I get him in the hotel. I get him to the elevator. And I go, all right, I don't know where you are. Can you get to your room? You good? He's like, yes. This is probably 2, 3 in the morning, partying all night. You're good. Yeah. Beat. Me being a dumbass that I was at the time, thinking he was good. Well, I guess he wandered around the hotel the whole friggin' night. And that's what I heard on the air. That Howard said he wandered around the hotel and lost his tooth somehow. And I was just like, oh, that might have been my fault, but I didn't know any better. No, I couldn't find anybody else around that normally would take care of him. You know what I mean? So I got him back to the hotel. That was like the best I could do.
If you go to the channel, I've interviewed Bobby, his handler now, Sean's brother, Bobby Rooney.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing you get such a better sense of Beetle after talking to Bobby, because everyone thinks of him as a whackpacker, but he's a guy. He's a normal guy, obviously with a little mental deficiency. Yeah. But in the end,
his personality, he's such a shit talker, and he's just like, yeah, fuck that guy, and that's what makes him so funny.
Just you watch him and they show that video of him just shooting pool or just being normal. It's like he's just a normal guy. Part of my idea with this was to kind of take a deep dive in a moment in time of the show. I didn't ask you about this either. I should have, but this was bad producing on my part. But I went back. One of my favorite moments, and it's probably weird to say this, but one of my favorite moments, and I just went back and watched it, Scott the engineer offering up for $250,000. And if you want to see it, it's out there. Do you remember this show? And
yes.
So, how shocked were you? Let me just set the stage. So, Casey was doing some calls to whackpackers. They wanted to offer $100,000 to try. I can't believe I'm saying this with a straight guy. So
they wanted Lexington Steel, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Michael J. Cox or Lexington Steel, and Gary the slow adult said no. Jeff. Maybe Gary said yes, but Jeff, the drunk, said no, completely no. And then he asked Scott, and Scott said yes. He said yes. And they were floored by this. So do you remember where you were? And we're going to talk about this episode. But do you remember listening to that? Because I actually
I remember listening to it, but I do. Do you remember what year that was?
Probably 03. Yeah, there was a point where I was recording.
Probably at work.
Yeah, I was recording all these shows. So I would record them and then come back and listen, after work or wherever I was, and I'd be like, but this one was shocking to me. And you go back and listen. So he says yes, and then Howard's like, talk to your wife, please. Don't even get us started because we're gonna. So now Howard's got pay-per-view involved. Vinny's got it on DirecTV.
They were going to have like a curtain with just his head showing, right?
And it turned into America. Who we'll pick. You'll pick. And it was it was so fun. And Scott's sitting there as if he's going to do it. And then Scott goes, no. It was only that I was going to do it and not be videotaped. And so he had standards. But it's hilarious. It's one of those. How shocked were you to hear Scott do that?
Well, I mean, like, it was $2 million, right? Wasn't that the number?
250,000, not even $2 million.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah,
I thought. See, I remembered it being $2 million. $2 million, I can definitely justify.
Maybe it'd be
$250K.
Well, they had turned it in. Now there was going to be giant stadium, 80,000 people, and you would see Scott's head and only the curtain and the man behind him, and it'd be 2 minutes. But it's just the way it started from just this. This is what I love about the show. It starts with this little premise that Casey wonderfully created or was part of, and then it turns into 3 or 4 or 5 days of shows, and something that I still remember and still laugh at. Would you have gone?
To that? Oh, hell yeah. I mean, it was probably going to be in New York, so there would have been logistical problems me being on the West Coast. But if it was in the budget, I would have gone.
Think about did you have any other Scott the Engineer favorite moments, or did that one's
the push-up challenge? Yeah. Dude, for sure, that was best.
Where were you for that? Were you around?
Ganji.
Did you get to go in there? Yeah, yes. No freaking way, Ganji! I told you not to use the tape.
Use the tape.
Ganji's been on.
Yeah, so
we mentioned that.
For me, at the time, West Coast guy, I was married with kids. There wasn't a lot of discretionary income to be flying around the country being crazy. Wasn't until I got single and a couple pennies together where I made it to Howard's last day in New York and all that stuff. So, but something like that, I definitely would have tried. I would have tried to make that happen.
As I think back on the push-up challenge, again, another time where Scott, what is he thinking? And then I thought those were good push-ups. I think the rules were not good. I think doing a push-up all the way down, I've done push-ups way long time ago, obviously, you can tell now. But It's hard to get your chest all the way to the ground like that with your chin down, and I thought he was doing it. I didn't think. First of all, they had an intern that was the referee, which was hilarious. They had
that poor
Dean the referee. Yeah, I mean that was what a moment. I thought he did the push-ups myself.
I thought he came close. He was close. I mean, look, I don't want to count other people's money, but like, I think Howard could have made that payment without a problem. But it was funnier that he didn't. You know, if I was Howard, I would have just sent him the money down low a little while later and be like, "Here you go, buddy." You know.
I think in the end he did. I think he finally. Yeah, I think they did. But another great moment. And this is right when they started kind of. I mean, the E Show had been around for maybe 3-4 years, but to be able to hear that and then go watch it a couple nights later on E, I mean that's to me. Again, I know you're still listening. I can't imagine. I mean, I like the Bruce Springsteen thing that he just did.
That was good.
But I'm curious your thoughts. I mean, these interviews are so long. It feels like he runs out of. He gets kind of bored at that 1 hour, or the interview guest is like, "All right, we've gone 90 minutes. Are we done?"
I get lost in it usually. Even people I don't like and have no interest in. The only one, like, I'm no fan of Pearl Jam, so I couldn't make it through that one because Eddie Vedder, I find him to be a bore. And I'm not a Dave Matthews Band guy at all. And I listened to that interview and I still don't like him. But everybody else kind of won me over. Like,
Harry Styles?
I was a Gaga fan until she was on. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care at all about Bruce Springsteen. Great interview. And then it's like, oh, he wrote that song. I didn't know that. That kind of stuff. Like, I'm always in. Either like Charlie Pluth guy. Who the hell is that guy? No idea. It's a fantastic interview. It was really good. So just, it keeps me, maybe it's just because I've commuted for such a long time and the show was like me not going crazy. You know, so I'm driving to work for an hour plus, listening to Howard, getting up in the morning, listening to Howard, kept me sane and sitting at my desk. People want to talk to me like, no, listening to Howard. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
At least now we can pause. But back then, when it was on the radio.
Yeah. And I want to, there's always commenters on this page, so people love to comment. Let's have some commenters join in this discussion, and we'll bring up.
They're gonna love me.
We'll talk more about the interviews that you were like, I can't believe I'm enjoying this. I won't listen to a Harry Styles interview. I have no interest in actually hearing what he has to say.
Zero interest in Harry Styles, but it was a pretty good interview, and it didn't bore me, and it was good.
Yeah.
It was one of them I watched on the app. I think it was Sheryl Crow. I was just like, oh, I'll watch it. I hadn't gotten to it yet. It was good. I liked it better on the app.
Now, one I wish would be better would be Rosie O'Donnell. I feel like he could get way more. I feel like they're just too close now.
Yeah, they're buds, which is weird. I remember when they had the jelly bean full of her head full of jelly beans, and you had to guess how many jelly beans were in her head. And I think that was on his desk in the studio.
They were just screwed with her all the time. It's amazing. I guess the last bastion for him is Kathy Lee Gifford, right? That's the last.
Man, those were great shows, man. when that scandal came out with Frank and they reenacted it as Robin as a flight attendant, that was good stuff, man. They busted her balls good.
Outside of the birthday show and her doing like a thing, she hasn't come on though, right? And I feel like that's the last. No. I mean, Ellen, of course, he used to beat up mercilessly. She's been on. Rosie, of course, Adam Sandler. He would just shit all over those movies. So he's evolved, but I guess Kathy Lee Gifford's the last one to not join him yet. I guess that's still to come. I would think.
I think she could get on. Like, I don't think he really would want to. Like, what she's doing now that's interesting.
Be on the wrap-up show, I guess now. Maybe here.
Yeah, I know she'd be on that summer school, whatever that is, something like that. Like, I don't know. It's a 101 show for sure.
Do you remember? So you were mentioning Robin. I always do this for my wife. I always love the story about when Robin was getting swimming lessons. And the pool boy had to save her. And they did this whole 30 minutes on, oh, Bobby, come on over here, Bobby. I love that. That's like when they give Robin, because Robin never got shit on. So when they started going her way.
They animated that for the CBS show, didn't they?
I don't know.
I think there's an animation of that segment.
We'll have to check. But it's funny. And just thinking of her being drowning and having a pool boy is fairly hilarious. We started with Artie, so just tell me about kind of the last few times you guys did things together. Because I remember you guys being together, kind of at the end there in his final days on the show. But tell me some of your favorite stories about Artie. I love Artie's story. I hope Artie's doing well.
I remember there was one time when he told the story about being at the Hard Rock and they had a midget and we're not supposed to say that word anymore, but there was a little person there, and I was there for that. It was hilarious. I think it was me, Casey, Artie, Bob Levy. I don't remember who else was there. And we were like in this little VIP area, and there was this guy. I can't remember which guy it was because I knew. Oh, it was Tim. I think it was this guy, Tim. I hung out with him in Vegas. Whoop, wrong way.
Oh, his manager?
Features Madhouse.
Yeah.
And he was hammered, and he was drinking. And I might have gotten the little people reverse. And he started puking everywhere, just nonstop. So they grabbed him and took him away. But the best part is they came back. They put another little person in the VIP booth with us to hang out and drink. It's like, and the way I already told the story too, it was freaking hilarious, man. It's just that, like, they replaced the midget with another midget. That was one of my fun, like, just like hanging out, like, just like, because I was just like, well, where are we going? I'm barely in the circle, so you know what I mean. So I'm just quiet, observing in the back every once in a while, try and chime in, because you're there with like dudes that are funny, right? And you don't want to come in with the lame line. I don't want to be like Evil Dave, right? Where like when he would always do his own line, and it was just like, stick to the script, dude. You're terrible. So you just laugh, because I mean, and those dudes are so funny when they're not trying to be funny. They're just funny. So they're constantly cracking you up. Your stomach hurts. You're laughing so much, because it's like comedians, and when they're on, they're just on.
Well, Evil Dave was funny to me when he was not on. It was that, yeah. Him taking just liberties with the jokes was a damn good time for me, for sure. So yeah, I've enjoyed this. Again, I was just trying to go down memory lane. I want to just talk, and get folks here involved and let people comment, tell us some stories they'd like to hear about from the inside, or just hear us kind of discuss about the Stern Show. Sounds like you're still listening. Do you call? Are you a caller? Do you get through it all?
I called a few times. I got Stuttering John hung up on me once. I almost got through a couple of times. I've been on, like, I got through to like the Riley Martin show a bunch of times. I talked to Riley. I was back in the day, I was on Superfound Roundtable a couple times. I called in a couple of times. I did like a lot of the 101 shows were a lot easier to get onto. I got to be on the Scott Farrell show once back in the day. I did a little cameo on Bubba a couple times, but not like ever Howard. I never had anything that interesting to say that could get me on. And then also I have to get up at 3 a.m. to do that. And the timing never worked out right. And I was just, as much as I wanted to, like, I couldn't. Like, I remember when they had the test show, I was like jamming on speed dial on my phone at work, just nonstop trying to get through. But it's hard time wise. You know what I mean?
That was a pretty amazing time. I actually had to go run out. I bought Sirius. I wasn't going to do it. And then I heard that the test show thing was happening. I'm like, I have to hear this. I can't not. I've been recording this thing, for all these years, and now I have to hear what the first show is going to be like. He did a good job of marketing and promoting, because I was like, do I need this? I'll find some sort of stream somewhere. And that's back then when you could find the stream. It was a couple days later.
It still was rough.
Right. Yeah. But then when you heard that he was doing test shows, and those were great. That's the kind of stuff where just trying the equipment out, and then he started goofing on Scott, and it's like, oh, the show's starting. He's like, no, save this for the show. So it was a good time.
And in the beginning, like, they couldn't use the sound effects before the lawsuit with CBS, so they had to like recreate them and stuff. It was weird, and there was like. The show went from being just huge and to probably like maybe 2 million people listening. It was kind of intimate for a while. It was pretty cool. It was an interesting time, 2006.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for joining me. I'm sure we'll maybe catch up every once in a while. We'll give our favorite moments. I just wanted to, again, we're going to be talking about favorite moments going forward here with other fans, other people that worked on the show, the things that you love about the show, the thing that your wife loves about the show. Helicopter Pete's wife.
We even got Eric the actor stories like crazy, because he was a friend of mine. So when you're ready for that, we got a ton of stories.
All right, the next episode will be Eric the actor stories with Helicopter. We had John Johnson on, who was great. He was in his car.
Yes, Jan's a good dude.
Yeah, we're gonna Jan. That's right. I always we could just be John Jan. But we'll
Johnson is so much funnier.
Maybe we'll get you guys together. We'll have an Eric the actor memorial show, because the first time it was just sort of kind of getting a little bit tidbits with Jan. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you watching. Again, sponsored by Masses Restaurants, 5 locations, stlmasses.com. We'll see you next time.